The question is, do airplanes fly above the clouds? The answer, it depends. It really does depend. It depends on the type of airplane, how long your flight is, what time of year is it, and where on planet Earth are you? In order to address this question in an honest fashion and give you some idea of exactly the span of the entire question, I'll have to address it in three categories, three steps. Step number one, we're going to talk about clouds. Step number two, we're going to talk about the airplanes. And step number three, I'll kind of give you the answer at the end of it. You'll find out why. So, about the clouds. There are, in fact, four types of clouds. These four types of clouds are low clouds, middle clouds, high clouds, and clouds with a lot of vertical development. Low clouds, as the name implies, are closer to the ground. We classify low clouds below 6,500 feet above the ground. That's about 1.2 miles, 1.25 miles of height and below. Middle clouds are from 6,500 feet to 20,000 feet, or 1.2 miles to about 3.8, 3.75 mile of height above the ground. Those are middle clouds. High clouds are above 20,000 feet, or above 3.8 miles of height and above. Those are the high clouds. Vertical clouds, as the name implies, they'll start typically at the low, they'll transition through the middle, and they'll go into the high. How far into the high they go is where it really does depend on many of the other factors. With regards to the vertical development clouds, just to give an idea, here in the United States during summertime, it is common to see thunderstorms going up to about 60,000 feet. That's over 11 miles high. Now, just to give you some additional idea of the whole scope of things, the highest flying commercial airliner in aviation history was the Concorde, which cruised at 60,000 feet. It was the exception to the rule. As a rule, commercial airliners do not go above 42,000 feet. And because that maximum altitude is dependent on weight, most of the times they're not up that high. Most airliners will cruise in the mid-30s. The absolute highest clouds out there are in fact pushing 75,000 feet, which is just difficult to wrap your mind around. Next time you take a 14-mile drive in a somewhat straight line, think about how far you drove. That's the height of the thunderstorm, 14 miles. That converts over to about 23 kilometers high. I mean, that's really hard to conceive. And even when you're looking at that storm, when you're looking at a storm that high, you may not be able to tell the tops of the cloud, especially if you're a little bit close to the storm. It just kind of becomes so high that you just can't tell the top. It just kind of fades as you look up. I mean, that's how high we're talking about, even while you're flying. And just to give you some context, think about this. When you're cruising in an airliner at 35,000 feet, you're halfway up that storm. That's really high. Now about the airplanes. So there are many different types of airplanes, many different sizes, right? So the airplanes will fly at different altitudes, they'll carry a different amount of people, and they're designed to accomplish very different missions. Well, depending on the airplane will greatly impact how high the airplane can go, right? Most of the smaller airplanes can't really go above 10,000 feet very well, mid-10s at the very most. And then you get into a little bit bigger airplanes, which would be about 20, 25. And then you get into the commercial airliners and the jets, and they'll be up in the, 40 and 50. Now, by the nature of this question, I do assume that you're asking this question as a passenger relating to a commercial airliner. That way we can simplify it a bit. Now, commercial airliners will typically be in the 30s, which means anywhere from 30,000 feet to 39,000 feet. So anywhere, just ballparking it from 6 miles of altitude until about 7, right? Just a ballpark figure from 6 to 7 is a good number, 6.5 to think about that. 35,000 feet of cruising altitude, just as a ballpark. Some of the key components regarding the airliners in particular would be, number one, how long is the flight? If the flight is not too long, no airliner is going to go up to its maximum altitude. What is too long? Well, anything below an hour, you really may be susceptible to not going up as high as you can go. Um, if conditions are perfect, the airplane is light, there's no weather, blah, 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 the airplane may go up to its maximum altitude on an hour flight, but typically not necessarily. So on the little bit longer flights, the airplane will typically go as high as it can go. Now, there are many factors impacting how high an airplane would like to go. Just to name a few would be winds, weather, traffic, air traffic control. There are a multitude of factors. So just keep that in mind as I address this question in an honest manner. And now, on to answer the question. So, are airplanes capable of flying above the clouds? Well, yes and no. It truly does depend. Now, if you're aboard a commercial airliner and you're going on a longer flight, odds are that you are going to be above most of the clouds. Anyway, folks, I know that this is a bit of a tricky answer, but that is the honest answer to this very popular question. Can airplanes fly above the clouds? Hopefully you've enjoyed this little Q&A type of thing. We can do a lot of that. There are so many questions that passengers like to ask. How fast does an airplane take off and land and fly? How far does it go? How do the engines work? What are some of this or that procedure? So we could definitely answer these questions for you on this channel. Make sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know what kind of question you have, and maybe we'll create a video about it. So definitely appreciate you sharing your time with me. Stay tuned. Do like and subscribe and share this video. A very popular question to all of your flying friends out there. And hope to see you again soon on the next video on our channel. Folks, until then, until next time, fly safe.